humour is one of the most important drugs that we can create for ourselves to make us feel good about ourselves and make us feel happy.
Welcome to the Humourology Podcast with me, Paul Barros. This is where we explore the art of humour in business and life. My guest today is a true broadcasting legend. For more than 6 decades, she has informed, entertained and inspired the nation. From delivering the BBC 9 o'clock news and hosting Eurovision Song Contest to becoming a firm favourite on Come Dancing, Rip Off Britain and Strictly Come Dancing. She was awarded a CBE for her remarkable work in dementia care and continues to champion causes close to her heart. A pioneer, a professional, and a woman whose wit and warmth have brightened British broadcasting. Angela Rippon, welcome to the Humourology Podcast.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's such a pleasure to see you again. You've just got back from a big trip and you are looking fresher than ever. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I think I'm very lucky, Paul, that I do a job that I love. And I think if you enjoy what you do, then you get great pleasure out of it. And that's what keeps me going. I mean, I'm just thrilled that people keep asking me to make programs. What you're referring to is a series I'm doing for Channel 5 on sailing down great rivers of the world and doing a travel program. And I've been to Vietnam and Cambodia, sailing down the Mekong, which was absolutely wonderful because I'd never been to either of those countries before. So that was an adventure as well as an exploration. And I've just more recently come back, well, just 48 hours ago, from sailing down the Danube, starting in Budapest, which you are very familiar with, and Hungary, sailing then into Austria, going to Vienna. I spent a wonderful morning at the Spanish riding school there, behind the scenes, which for me was just horse heaven. I just had a most wonderful morning, among other things. And then into Germany and finishing in, where did we finish? Yes, we finished actually quite deep into Germany. We were at Nuremberg and then had to fly from Frankfurt, I think, from there. So yeah, it's been I've been having a wonderful time traveling on rivers.
Well, and you've got more energy than people a quarter of your age. It's quite extraordinary. I know, having seen you dance in person. Let me take you back to the beginning. You grew up in Plymouth, where your father served in the Royal Marines and your mother, Edna, worked for a China company. Was humour valued in your family?
My dad had a great sense of humour. My mum was a bit more serious. I don't think she found too many things in life very funny. But I loved listening up, well, because of my age. I mean, my humour started by listening to the radio. So I loved and still do love listening to recordings of Round the Horn, Beyond Our Ken. Though I mean, I have them on tape, on disc as well, and I listen to them in the car. I know some of them by some of the scripts by heart. I think. I mean, Kenneth Williams with that entire team. You cannot listen to those programs without laughing. The Navy Lark, of course, which was on radio. On a Sunday, particularly over Sunday lunch, we would always have the radio on, and it was the light program in those days. And you had all these wonderful comedy programs on radio, and I loved all of them. I was never into the goons. They didn't touch my funny bone. There was something about their humour that didn't appeal to me. But my goodness, no, Round the Horn still makes me laugh out loud, even though I know what's coming next.
It's Julian and Sandy, of course.
Yeah, Julian and Sandy. Oh, hello. What was it they used to say? Oh, hello, Mr. Owen. I'm Julian. This is my friend Sandy. Do you know, when I did Desert Island Discs, one of the things that I included in my 8 discs was a recording of Kenneth Williams. He used to do those monologues.
Yes.
And I included one of those because I wanted something that would make me laugh, and I knew that would, and still does.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? You started dancing very, very early in life, around 5, I think, with ballet and tap. What did that early dance discipline teach you about timing and pose that carried through to live television?
Probably everything. At the start, I mean, I was 5. I had knock knees, and the family doctor had said, we either give her built-up shoes, to turn my feet back out, or you send her to a dance class. And my mother, fortunately, sent me to a dance class, which was up to water time, really, I suppose. I discovered classical music as a result, because there was somebody plonking away on a piano, at the end of the hall. But at 5, you just sort of run around in little tabards and fun and little flat shoes. But I got a love. I mean, I loved dance and I loved music, and I suppose what it did was it triggered in me what actually is in all of us. All of us can move to music. If you listen to a piece of music, even if you're just sort of, flicking your fingers or tapping your feet or whatever, we're moving to music. And I discovered a love for that. And so went on to do, as you said, ballet and tap and modern dance until I was about 17, I think. But I've managed in my professional career to do that thing that the Japanese always say is the perfect way to enjoy your life, which is to be able to include a passion with your profession. So I've made programs about health that have included dance. I've made I made a documentary about the Hoofers meeting great dancers of the time, like Ann Miller and all sorts of wonderful dancers. And the health programs that I've done have talked about the benefits of dance as being the best form of exercise you can do for the health and well-being of your mind as well as your body. And appeared on. I mean, I hosted Come Dancing, which was wonderful to do. I've been asked to dance in 2 Royal Variety performances, bearing in mind I'm not a professional dancer. And then, of course, as you say, Strictly. And coming out of Strictly, I've started a project called Let's Dance. I got so many wonderful people. I was 79 when I did it, which was, 2 years ago. And so many people who probably already knew I could sort of dance a bit. I think we're quite surprised that at 79 I was able to do what I did. And we're talking about me being inspirational to them and making them want to get out and dance. So I thought if we can get the nation fit by getting the nation dancing, it's a form of exercise that is fun to do. You may want to go to the gym or do a park run or cycle or whatever. But if you don't want to do any of those things, don't just think of dance as an entertainment, which it is, of course, brilliantly in theatre, on television, and on live stage and film. But think of it as a form of exercise, which it is. It's one of the best sort of exercises you can do, because you can't dance without using every part of your body. It goes from your toes, your feet, your ankles, all the way up your body to your head, your neck, your arms, every bit of you. It's a great
And
form of exercise, and you have fun while you're doing it.
and as a psychologist, I can the mind, it actually pushes the hemispheres of the mind together, of the brain together, which is really interesting that now the studies are out there. And if you read the psychological studies, the movement and actually the rhythm pushes the hemispheres of the brain together, which is a great antidote to aging, really.
It's great to stave off or reduce the effects of dementia. It does, it really does, because you have to remember things. But also you're never isolated or lonely in a dance class. It's the wonderful thing you do with other people and have fun doing it. And for people with dementia to be able to dance with other people is absolutely wonderful. It's rather like singing for the brain for dementia as well. An individual may not remember the person they've lived with for 60 years, may not remember their children's names or whatever, but they do remember the words of songs. And that's because, as you will know then, Paul, the hippocampus at the back here is the bit that is so powerful. It works. People with Parkinson's, I've been doing a lot of work with Parkinson's UK because Charlotte Russell, who is their CEO, she talks about dance as being a miracle. I mean, it's not a cure, obviously, because there is no cure for Parkinson's. But what it does do is dance. It strengthens your core. It improves your balance. It certainly improves your coordination. And it gives you an opportunity not just to build those muscles which enable you to, as it were, be in control of what you're doing. What it does for you psychologically, knowing and I've spoken to many people now with Parkinson's who do this, they say that it's almost as if they're able to take back control of their bodies. Parkinson is not in control. They are, because they are moving to music. There are all sorts of ways in which dance has an incredible effect on people. And in terms of humour, as I said, I've never seen anyone come off a cross trainer from a gym, in their lycra, sweating and saying, it was fun. But you go to a dance class and you laugh. I defy anybody not to smile when they're dancing, not to laugh, not to share that moment of joy with other people. So dance is actually a great way of staying happy. It really is, as well as getting you fit.
No, I couldn't agree any more from a psychological perspective. I'm interested when you discovered it at 5. Did you discover early on that having a sense of rhythm helps with having a sense of humor? Because of course, all comedy is about rhythm,
It's
is it
about
not?
timing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Like, I think at 5, I didn't have that sort of educational excellence to be able to tell me that. No, of course I didn't. My brain was not sufficiently developed at that point to make that connection.
Oh, of
I
course.
just did it because I enjoyed it. And like a lot of little girls, I sort of really learned to dance by standing on my father's feet. My father was a great dancer and enjoyed
Oh.
dancing. So if we went to family occasions, Daddy would always dance and I would stand on his feet. And lots of little girls do that now. Their fathers dance and they stand on their feet. I mean, obviously it was much later when the brain was a bit more developed that I was sort of making that connection between doing a movement which was in time with the music to which I was listening. But I think something that most of us actually, whether we realize it or not, can still do. I know I get lots of people, men particularly, saying to me, oh, I can't dance, I've got 2 left feet. And the kids always say, oh, Dad, Dad dancing, terrible, you look dreadful. But I always say that actually, it's one of the best forms of dancing is dad dancing, because that's an individual who is just allowing themselves total free expression in what they're doing. They're having fun. They're enjoying it. They aren't trying to win the glitter ball. They're not trying to get a job at the Royal Ballet. They're doing something for the sheer joy of it. So there is that connection between it. It's not so much, I'm not sure if humor is the right description, but a joy for something that makes you feel happy. And that's what dance does. And so, listening to comics, listening to people that make you laugh, makes you feel happy. That's why you laugh. So there is definitely that connection between the two, Paul. You're quite right.
Well, there is, because we've had your friend Arlene Phillips on this, and she obviously did a lot of crossover with comedy, with the
Yes,
with the Monty Python stuff,
yes,
and all that, and also musicians we've had on this. The essence of all this, of course, is rhythm
yes,
and timing, and
yes.
those things seem to count. I mean, you became the first female journalist to regularly read the BBC News. Was humour ever a secret weapon for dealing with the weight of that responsibility, or the occasional newsroom skeptic?
Well, news is and should be serious stuff. You
Yes.
shouldn't muck about with it, obviously.
Oh,
But I think being able to see not just the dark side of life, which unfortunately so much of news is, having a sense of humour, or just being able to see the good in things sometimes was terribly important, because clearly when you're in the newsroom, I remember a lot of the stuff that was coming through at the time from Northern Ireland, from the Middle East, from places all over the world was pretty horrendous and never actually saw the light of day, was not actually shown on television. Um, you have to have, if you like, a lightness of spirit, I think, to get you through those days when things are particularly grim and unpleasant and the news is bad. Um, you have to have a part of your character which allows you then to see the yin and yang of life you are working in a serious atmosphere, but you can come out of that and go into the newsroom and have a laugh and a joke with people. That doesn't mean to say you're not taking news seriously, but that it's, isn't it a way of guarding our sanity, Paul? If we
Yes.
weren't able to detach ourselves at times without underestimating the importance of the serious side of life and the terrible things that we see and the awful things that are happening in the world on a daily basis, you need, if you just thought about those things, you would get into a very deep trough of depression, wouldn't you?
I think so.
And that is not good for the human brain or the human psyche. So I think being able to not diminish the importance of that side of life or what is happening in the world that is serious and needs our attention, but being able to just turn your brain and say, I'm going to look at those silly videos of cats, whatever it is that makes you laugh, or I'm going to go and play with the grandchildren because they will make me feel happy. We need that yin and yang in our lives of being aware of the serious side of life, but being able to switch off sufficiently to ensure that we don't descend into total despair, and we are able still to see that life is full of wonderful things that make us smile, that make us feel happy. I mean, you just mentioned about my trip filming. When we were sailing down the Danube, because we had glorious autumnal weather every day, where you have clear blue skies, you have that lovely, strong, raw strength of the sun, as you do in the autumn. And we're sailing down the river, and on the banks of the Danube, thousands of trees, which at this time of year in the autumn were going into their autumn shades. They were yellow, they were burgundy, they were golden, and the sun shining on them. You couldn't help but look out and see that wonderful thing that nature gives us to look at, that was just beautiful, that would make you smile and say, doesn't that look lovely? I think the human psyche can take quite a lot of things that make us feel serious and responsible and aware, but at the same time, they need the other things that make us smile so that we keep a balance in our lives and don't descend into depression. And I think it's so sad that those people that do, that making them listen to Round the Horn for half an hour might help them laugh, make them listen to or watch Porridge, old episodes of
Oh,
Porridge.
fabulous.
I mean, I'm thinking of the kind of the humour that I was growing up with,
Mm.
because the humour that I was growing up with is not quite the same as some of the humour that is that is around now. But give them something to smile at, and I'm not belittling in any way those people who suffer from mental health. But I just feel that if we could help them by getting them to smile a bit more often, a bit of humour might be a bit more important to them than taking another pill.
Well, absolutely. Well, that there's now studies about the brain chemistry, and the mere act of smiling
Yes,
actually changes the brain chemistry for positive. And
yes,
rather than SSRIs, which are like happy pills, they did studies, and people who just smiled for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening actually had the same effect on the brain. So it's
yes,
quite fascinating how that works. I was very interested because we had Dermot Murnaghan, who you obviously know on the
yes.
show, and he argued that the appropriate levity belongs in the news, especially when the world feels heavy. Do you think we need more of that sort of and finally spirit?
You took the words out of my mouth because, of course, we didn't do it on the 9 o'clock news, but when I was doing it, but on the 10 o'clock news over at ITV, they always ended with and finally, and it was something that would make you smile, make you laugh, or something that was the complete antidote to much of the gloom and doom that you had been listening to for the previous 25 minutes. Yes, we do. I don't. We can't live without laughter. We can't. can't. Human beings were not meant to be miserable. Human beings were meant to smile, to laugh. Just go back to cavemen. Look at the lovely things that they drew. They drew things not just about them hunting, but all of the lovely things that they did as well. They wanted the nice things. So I think humanity, human beings as we've developed, we've always needed people that would make us laugh, things that make us smile. It's impossible. I think it is impossible for any human being, I don't care how miserable they may appear to be, to look at a baby chuckling and smiling and not find it something that makes them smile. There are so many things, I think, in the human makeup, so many things that we react to, that at times we underestimate how important those perfectly natural reactions are. I mean, you hear a joke, it makes you laugh. That is something that happens quite naturally. You can't stop it. You see something very sad, or someone asks you to talk about something sad, you start to cry. And we are living creatures that have within this skin, our body, and within our brains, we have all sorts of mechanisms that react to things in a different way. We smile, we laugh. It's not something you can do falsely. If somebody laughs falsely, you can hear it. You know it's not real. So laughing and smiling are things that we do automatically because they are real, because there is something going on in our brain that makes us feel lighthearted, that makes us feel happy, that makes us feel positive, that makes us feel constructive. But there are also things that make us feel very sad, very depressed, very unhappy. But we have both. We have the yin and the yang within us. And I hope that if it is the yin that is the happy gene, that outweighs the sadness, without us ever underestimating how important both sides of that are to our makeup as human beings and the way we feel about life in general.
So you think we do need a little bit more of the roller skating dog at the end of the news,
Oh, how many times have I seen on Instagram dogs that go on skateboards? And it's every time. I love it when I see a dog, pedaling like this and then jumping on the board and sort of looking back at its owner as if to say, no, that makes me smile. Of course it does, because I think it's is it funny? Yes, it is. It's unexpected, but it's happy. I think watching people being happy makes you feel happy. I think it does. And I think there is, it's difficult sometimes when we watch the news, but I think in general, there's more lightheartedness and happiness in the world than there is sadness. I just wish there were more of the former and less of the latter.
Yeah, well, and actually, while you were talking, I was just thinking that they now doctors can prescribe, or GPs can prescribe going to the gym. Actually, why wouldn't GPs prescribe going to the comedy store? And as
Yeah.
an antidote to
It's funny you
depression.
should say that, Paul. It's called social prescribing. And it means that every GP surgery in the country now has what they call a link worker who works with a doctor. Because many GPs themselves recognized that, in fact, I'm because of the Let's Dance program, I've looked a great deal into the effect that dance has on health, and so I've read reports. I mean, if you could see the stuff that's on my desk at the moment, it's a lot of it is medical stuff, and the Medical Research Council themselves have admitted that something in the region of £1 billion a year on the NHS budget is spent unnecessarily on drugs. I mean, a lot of it is spent, of course, on things that do make a difference to people's health and are essential. Antibiotics, for instance, just to name one. But there are things that they would wish they did not have to write a prescription for, but there is no alternative to it. Well, there is. Social prescribing allows GPs who have the funding to pay for it to send you to a gym, to send you to a drama class, to send you to a book club, to send you to a dance class, to send you to all sorts of things that can help you rather than having to take pills. And I forget who it was who said it, but I think it's been taken up by a lot of people who say that if dance, particularly dance, if dance was a drug, it would be a miracle cure. There are so many things in life where GPs these days, social prescribing is part of what the NHS will offer, but it's, as I've discovered, is not being funded properly. And it's one of those things that I've been in discussion with Wes Streeting about, among other people, that if we could fund it properly, there are so many things, particularly people who are suffering from depression or stress, would find that if they could go to a drama group or go to a dance class or go to a gym or do something else, that would help them to get out of that depression. There are going to be pharmaceuticals, drugs that are needed for many, many conditions. Of course, medical science has produced so many things that are wonderful to help us keep fit and healthy or to get us better when we are seriously ill. But we have perhaps overlooked and undervalued some of the things that don't need a pill, that are there for us, like going to a comedy club, trying to be a stand-up comic, going to a dance class, going to a book group where you read things that make you laugh. There are all sorts of other things we can do as well, and we should never underestimate the importance of laughter and the sort of things that make us, whatever it is that makes you feel happy, that in itself, because we produce endorphin, and you will know endorphin is the happy drug, isn't it?
Yes.
Endorphin is the thing we produce naturally, along with dopamine and various other things that are natural healers, natural things within our body that make us feel good. There's a wonderful lady called Daisy Fancourt who writes about the value of the arts on our health. And she says that, let me just get this right, dance and the endorphins and chemicals it produces in your body are the only are the only legal performance enhancing drugs you will ever need. And she's right.
She, she's 100% right. And by the way, we create drugs in our head, cortisol and all those other things. We can create those things.
I've seen people, Paul, come out of a dance class smiling. They throughout the dance class smiling. Enjoy. If they get it wrong, we all laugh together. If they get it right, we all say, "Didn't that look wonderful?" You come out of a class, you feel good. You come, you can feel the endorphins absolutely racing through your body. You come out smiling and laughing. You come. If you go out for a night with your mates and you're on the dance floor, everybody is smiling and laughing. You're releasing endorphins. You're having a great time. It's making you feel good about yourself and making you feel happy. Humor is one of the most important drugs that we can create for ourselves to make us feel 100%. Good about ourselves and make us feel happy.
100%. And that reminds me, of course, of the 1976 Morecambe and Wise Christmas show, which remains one of the funniest and most joyful moments in British television. What did you learn from Eric and Ernie about the power of humour to connect with audiences?
I suppose, because I did two of their shows. I did the one everybody remembers, and then I did a tiny bit in the show the following Christmas when they had all the guys doing There's Nothing Like a Dame, if you remember, which was wonderful, well. Doing the tumbling, which was the Royal Navy's gymnastics group doing it. Brilliant editing there. What did I think because they and their wives both became great friends. And I think what I learned was that the humour that they produced, which was never coarse, never angry, never spiteful, never uncomfortable, they just made you laugh. What I have discovered over the years, particularly since they died, was how their brand of humour made them loved.
Yes.
People, I cannot tell you, Paul, how many times people say to me, what was it like to work with Eric and Anne? And it's a bit like, I think I'm one of the only people who worked on this show now who's still alive. Um, uh, Elton John, of course, did. He's still with us. But lots of people that appeared with them are not. So it's a kind of vicarious thing now when people say, well, because they themselves have not been with us. Eric hasn't been with us since 1984.
I know.
Ernie died, I think, about 5 or 6 years later. They're not here anymore. The legacy they have left behind are the recordings of the programs that they did for the BBC and ITV, which whole new generations have discovered. I had a gentleman on the train say to me one day, he just leant across the aisle and he said, I just want to tell you that, and he was a man probably in his late 30s, early 40s. My two sons, who are teenagers, they love watching the old Morecambe and Wise. In other words, their humour has no generational barrier. People loved their humour. What was it now? Gosh, it was back in the 70s. So we're talking, what, 40, 60 years ago.
60
But they
years.
love them now. It's timeless.
Yeah.
And what I learnt was that people who make you laugh, people who make you happy, you love them. You like them. And people want to, it's like what I danced with a man who danced with a girl who danced with the Prince of Wales, that old song. It's that
Yes.
vicarious thing. When people talk to me, I am a living link with Eric and Ern. They don't want to know about me, they want to know about them, and that's perfect. They want me to tell them what they were like because talking to me about them is the closest they're going to get to them because neither of them are with us anymore. And they say, oh, Eric Morecambe used to make me laugh. Oh, I loved the Morecambe and Wise show. They love everything about them. And that is all down to the fact that those two men knew how to make people happy and make people smile. And that was what I learned from them. And that has left a legacy which which young kids now can still enjoy. They have left us a treasure trove of fun. Like,
Oh,
going back to me remembering, Round the Horn and the Navy Lark and Porridge and all of those other things and Yes Minister. I mean, all of those programs that made me laugh. Eric and Ern are still, even though both of them have been, well, Eric does, as I say, since 84, which is what, 40 years ago, isn't it? Are still making young people
fifty,
laugh. Is it 40, 80?
40.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
yes,
40
it's
years,
40.
40
Yes,
years
40
ago.
years.
It's still making two generations after they've died, still making them laugh. What does that tell you about the power of humor?
Well, it tells me a great deal, but it also tells me a great deal about yourself. I was lucky enough to meet them and briefly work with them, but it was just one of those extraordinary things where you just felt like you'd been touched by, God, if you like, because them doing a little joke for you. But what actually you did and was you were able to laugh at yourself. And how important do you think that is in life to be able to sort of take the mickey out of yourself?
I think what's important is never to take yourself too seriously. That's what it
Yes.
is. Um, yes, I mean, I do things that are fun. And I do things that I hope are enjoyable for other people as well. Of course, you shouldn't ever take yourself too seriously. Because if you do, you miss out on the opportunity, again, for a smile. I think if someone is being spiteful or unpleasant, then that's a bit different towards you. But if something happens that is funny, you should be able to join in with the joke. So don't ever take yourself too seriously because, well, that way you just go down a route where there's no humor in life at all, don't you?
Well, yeah, and I also think that it brings people in, it humanizes, if you
Yes.
like, people, because if you can laugh at yourself, I mean, we all have foibles, and as a psychologist, you all have to go, we all have foibles, we all have strangeness. If we all open up about it, then I think that invites people in, doesn't it?
It does, hopefully. I think it does. I mean, humor is a great way of starting a conversation, isn't it? It's a great way of maintaining a conversation. You're going to, and also, don't we like to meet people who are humorous, who can see the funny side of life, who can see the lighter side of life? Don't we enjoy their company? Of course we do. Why? Because when we're with them, we feel a lightness of spirit too. We don't go away feeling depressed. And nobody wants that.
It's true, but I mean, you are a living embodiment of this. I heard you describe the body as a machine that has to keep moving. 60 years plus on television, still working full time, as you just described the down the Danube trip. Is movement in every sense, your secret to staying young at heart?
When you say about the body as a machine, it's a quote that I very often use when people ask me about, why do I stay fit? When I was a very young journalist, I met a lady who was called Eileen Fowler, and some of your listeners may remember her. She was, during the Second World War, she was the sort of Jane Fonda of her day. She was the Green Goddess of her day in the 40s and the 50s. Into the 60s as well. She started, or was a very major part of, the sort of the keep fit movement in this country, certainly for women during the Second World War when their men were away. And I met her when I was in my 20s, I think, at Westwood Television, where I was working at the time. And she was in her 60s, tiny lady, full of life, sprang into the studio, touching her toes, doing it. And I was interviewing her about how you keep fit. And she said, Angela, what you have to remember is that the body is a machine. Like any machine, it's full of millions of moving parts. Now, if you've got a machine, if it's a car, a lawnmower, a pair of scissors or whatever, and you don't use it regularly, and you don't oil them regularly, they will seize up, they will rust. And that is what will happen to your body. If you don't keep everything moving, it will seize up and it will rust. And it's true. I mean, just as a simple example, I was shopping in Marks and Spencer's a couple of months ago, and one of the girls behind the desk, she said to me, bend down and touch your toes, can't you? She said, I can only bend over. And she went sort of like about halfway like this. And I said, it's because you don't do it. You've given up trying. So there I am in Marks and Spencer's while she's wrapping up the sweater that I just bought, and I'm giving it, and I'm saying to her, try this, try so and so. And behind the counter, she's doing it. I went in, I don't know, several weeks later, and she was behind the counter again. She said, only because she hadn't been doing it. But it's true. We don't keep everything moving. It is going to seize up. And I think what I've discovered, I mean, all right, I perhaps take it to sort of further lengths, but if you stop doing things that you were able to do with ease in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, even into your 50s, then when you get to your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s, it is going to restrict your life. It's going to mean you can't go for the long walks that you did. You can't play football with the grandchildren. You can't lift up the new baby in the family. You find that that your life becomes restricted because your body doesn't move in the way that it did or respond in the way that it did, and so there are suddenly things that you can't do that you might want to do. So Eileen Fowler, all those years ago, was absolutely right. Just keep the machine ticking over, keep the parts moving, and hopefully you'll go into your senior years not just being happy, but being healthy and fit too.
Well, it's basically use it or lose it, isn't it?
It
Really.
is. Absolutely. Yes.
And so you're a great speaker, and a lot of people who listen to this podcast want to hear from the greats about how they think when they're speaking. What are they doing? What advice would you give to anyone who has to stand up and make a speech?
I'll give you the advice my father gave me. My father, Royal Marine, nothing to do with television or broadcasting at all. So we're going back 60 years now to my very first broadcast, 6th of September, 1966. It'll be 60 years to the day next year that I've been working in broadcasting as a telly and radio reporter. And after my very first broadcast, when I got home, I mean, I was a journalist. I'd done photography and journalism. I'd done a 5-year apprenticeship. I knew that side of my job, but I'd never appeared in front of a television camera. It was my very, very first appearance. And when I got home, I said, "No, what did you think of that?" And my dad said, "It was fun, dear." He said, "But you did look like a rabbit caught in the headlights." And I said, "Well, Daddy, I do my job as a reporter on a newspaper, which is what I was, anonymously. But there I am, and I'm aware that there's several thousand people now watching me do my job." And my dad said, "Well," he said, "the next time you go in the studio," he said, "talk to me." He said, "When you look at the camera, say hi, to yourself, 'Hi, Daddy, this is my story. This is what I want to tell you.'" And for a while, I was a visiting professor of journalism at Lincoln University, and I used to say to all my students, I've been talking to my dad for 50 years, as it was then. I have been talking to my dad for 60 years because that's what you do. I've done programs subsequently where there've been telephone numbers. I mean, 160 million people watching Eurovision Song Contest, for instance. But actually, you're only broadcasting to one or two people individually, either one person listening to you on the radio or two people watching you on television at home. So you're having a conversation like I am now, Paul, with you, with one person. It's a conversation. And so, my dad got it right. So I would say to anybody, if you are having to speak for the first time to an assembled group, find one person in the audience, or think, that's my mum, that's my dad, that's my son, somebody that you would have a conversation with, and have that conversation with them. And that might help. It certainly kept me going for 60 years.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful story, and psychologically, you've chosen somebody you love, and that's a great thing, actually, because your whole brain chemistry will change when you're actually speaking to someone you love. So that's a beautiful piece of advice. Thank you so much.
You do remember oh goodness, Angela, my brain has gone dead for a moment. But on radio, when you hear people say listener, rather than, you recognize that you are talking really to one person, because people listen to the radio these days, singularly. They talk to one person. And that's what you're doing. You're talking to one person. You're having a conversation with another human being.
That's wonderful. Angela, we've got to the part of the show, the end part of the show, where we do quick fire questions.
Quick fire questions.
So this is just going to be fun. They don't have to be that quick fire,
Okay.
to be honest with you. Who's the funniest business person or person you've met throughout your long career?
When I lived in the West Country, I had a postman who always, he would deliver the post every day when I was home, and he would always come up with a funny line or say something, and it was great because it meant that whenever the postie arrived, I knew we were going to have a conversation that was going to be funny.
That's wonderful. His name wasn't Pat by any chance, was it?
It wasn't Pat, the postman Pat. No.
What book makes you laugh?
Well, I tell you what I've read recently. I've been reading Jack Herron's books. On television, we've got Slow Horses. He writes them. They are laugh out loud. I mean, his main character, Jackson Lamb, played brilliantly in the television series, has all the best lines. Those lines are in the book, and I just laugh out loud. And I just finished reading quite recently one of his. You can't read the book without laughing out loud, and I do.
Oh, that's fantastic. What film makes you laugh, Angela?
Several do, but I do remember going to see the film Babe. Do you remember? About
Yes,
the sheep
the pig.
the pig that became a shepherd, or thought it was a sheepdog.
Yeah.
There's a moment at the end where the pig goes into the arena and is talking to the sheep. When I saw that film in the cinema, I could not. I laughed so much, the tears were rolling down my face. I laughed and laughed. And I think mine was the loudest laugh in the cinema. And my friends were saying, "Shut up, Ange, shut up." And even to see it now, that film, Babe, that scene at the end, it still makes me absolutely convulse with laughter.
Oh, that's lovely. What word makes you laugh?
Like this, because there are several of them. But I thought one that I always think is funny is hirsute.
Hirsute.
Hirsute, meaning you are shaggy.
Hairy.
Something
Yeah.
is hairy or shaggy.
Yeah.
But I think to hear someone described as being hirsute, it's so sort of 19th century, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre, isn't it?
It is.
Let's take a shift to the side, or the other side, which is what's not funny. Is there anything?
Yeah. I do not find funny those comedians who think it is funny to swear every third word and who make fun of people. I do not think embarrassing someone, belittling someone so that you can show off and pretend that you're being funny is not funny. It's just cruel.
Yes, I agree. Cruelty. There's no need for cruelty, is there? And that's what we would call in the old days in comedy punching down. You don't need to punch down, whereas Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise would actually lift people up. That's just,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
What sound makes you laugh? I think you said it earlier with the baby's laughter.
It does. I mean, a child chuckling, I think, is one of the happiest sounds. I have a wonderful new goddaughter, little Olive. She's now just 18 months old. And when she chuckles, it is such an adorable sound. I just love it.
Well, you've read the news for many years, and you're a wonderful journalist. And would you rather be considered clever or funny?
Well, I don't think of myself as being clever. I'm not sure I'm very funny. I'd rather be wise than clever. I think clever sometimes can be
clever clogs.
Too clever for your own good.
Yes.
You can be a bit clever for your own good, but I don't think you can ever be humorous too much for your own good.
No, that's absolutely fair. And finally, desert island gags. If you could only take one joke with you to a desert island, what would that be?
Oh gosh, most of the jokes I know are so long, very, very, very long. I would do what I did on Desert Island Discs. I took Kenneth Williams doing a monologue from Round the Horn, and that even now still makes me laugh. And yet that particular one that I took must be half a century old, 50 years old. But anything that Kenneth Williams did as a monologue on Round the Horn, that is what I would take with me, because it would make me laugh out loud just listening to him.
And would you repeat it? Is there any bits that make you laugh out loud?
It was when they were doing Julian and Sandy on Round the Horn, and he would say, "Oh, Mr. Horn," and Kenneth Horn would say something, and he'd say, "Oh, isn't he old?"
There you go. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Angela Rippon, you've been an absolute delight, which I know you always are, but your humour, your humanity, and shines through you. And thank you for being such a wonderful guest on the Humourology Podcast.
Oh, Paul, thank you so much for asking me. It's been great to have a good laugh for half an hour.
The Humourology Podcast was hosted by Paul Barros, produced by David Rose. Music by Steve Hayworth, creative direction by Les Hughes, and additional research by Helen Sykes. Please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. This has been a Big Sky production.